The foreword from Bauhaus.
Was that the actual cover?
Bauhaus.
Yeah, you said drew on it. Who's it by?
Editors. Janine Fiedler and Peter Freerbrand.
Okay. Should we say who it's published by? Flugenmann?
Ullman. H.F. Ullman.
Flugenmann.
I don't even see that word.
That's Flugenmann.
What was probably the most successful and far-reaching school of design began with a vision. The idea of creating a new man from the disaster of World War I. This was
So, like, when they said new man, they weren't sensitive enough to think of, like, men and women. They weren't being gender specific.
right. Their language wasn't, but there was a lot of women who took part in Bauhaus.
Right.
So their language wasn't there, but they were more
Maybe just circle
accepting.
that, new man.
More accepting than past movements, for sure. This was to be a creature who, endowed with all the senses and trained by the best artists and architects of the age, would be able to invent the present and the future of a modern century.
So, like, that's kind of like what we've said through all the big important movements is they're sloughing off the past academies.
Yeah.
And they're like, screw this hierarchy. We're going with the best right now.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Down with that.
Inventing,
Yeah.
for sure. In 1919, Walter Gropius
Okay,
gave...
1919 was 2 years after Duchamp put the toilet in the,
Okay,
if I'm correct, I think it's 1917.
yeah.
So abstract exists, but it's not, it's hot. Yeah? And jazz was hot, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if Bauhaus and jazz was connected very tightly.
Well, yeah, because their philosophies were and also what they were pushing towards. And I bet this
But I mean,
guy
if they were, like, aware
was
of-
listening to jazz
Yeah, okay.
while he was pontificating on his balcony.
Yep.
That's what he was listening to. Yeah, because they listened
You're
to...
so polite with the book. I like get out with a bright red highlighter and I rip out pages I don't like, and you're very polite with the book.
We're on the first couple sentences.
Yeah, go.
Okay. In 1919, Walter Gropius gave his vision the programmatic title of Bauhaus.
Bauhaus.
He could scarcely have made a more adroit choice of name. Adroit. Clever.
Clever. Right angle.
For is not house synonymous with wealth of ideas?
That's how I used house and Rumble House, Vision House. And
Ah!
It is. I was using it for your mind. But I wasn't thinking of Bauhaus. Maybe it was like deeper.
That's how Abbott would always write it, was the H-A-U-S.
Yeah, yeah.
Rumble House.
Yeah. Because I bet you he has expensive chairs in his house.
Right. In his house.
For a ruffian.
Wealth of ideas. Painstaking execution.
Painstaking.
Right?
Like not an ounce of waste.
No waste.
That's what I love about it as well.
And the ability to adapt to the builder's new methods.
Right.
A house provides a meaningful location for the communal development of
Yeah,
ideas.
they have to come together in a house.
Meaningful.
Right?
Communal.
Not a studio.
Development.
Not separated from the gallery.
Right.
But a house. I love it.
About the shape to be given to life.
Yep.
Sorry, everything's underlined.
good.
And the
You're gonna
outside
cry soon,
world.
I bet you.
I know I held it back in the first reading, but this is going to be hard. And itself stimulates constant reflection, so outward and inward, regarding its own extension and rebuilding.
Right, you build with your heart and then you think about it afterwards.
Extension and rebuilding. Yeah. The act of building the house, of making it into a home, is sustained by the defining elements of space and time, and parallels the process of life itself.
Which is crazy because, like, Bauhaus, in terms of design,
Yeah.
I think it's held longer than anything. Well, I mean, there's the Romans. But I love
But
yeah,
in
it's
terms
about being
of
clean.
intellectual integrity,
Yeah.
because like people love the Romans or the Greeks
They were just flowery.
because it was beautiful and because it was, I think,
Overdone.
yeah, like just the grandiose nature of it. But Bauhaus is sustained because of its like clean
Simplicity.
yeah,
Intelligence, yeah. Okay, keep
and
reading.
intentionality. Gropius and the members of the Bauhaus wanted to change the face of their society, as
Fighting
do
for it,
we.
Yes.
To erect a spectacular modern building which would be free of the decorative clutter of the imperial era and which would above all point in a new direction.
Right.
For a brief period of just 14 years, the Bauhaus shared their desire for renewal with the young German Republic. While the former was civilizing man and the various spheres of his life in the intellectual powerhouses of studios and workshops, politicians were attempting to democratize the edifice of state and society. We know that democratization was suspended in order to usher in a millennium. Likewise, the National Socialists, after 1933, brought an uncompromising end to the aesthetic and intellectual civilizing of Germany. Elsewhere, in exile, above all in the United States and Palestine, the Bauhaus idea of social utopia was later taken further with the same energy as it at its sites in Weimar, Dessau, and Berlin.
Mm-hmm. Art is always political.
And you can't kill it.
Yeah, right?
It moves.
Not very fast, yeah.
So that was like Joseph Albers went to the States
for sure.
and
You can
taught.
kill me, but you can't
kill the idea.
The rest of the Rumble House.
Yeah, the idea is still there.
Right, the idea is that we have Neil Gaiman to thank for that.
Exactly.
As well, right?
That's where I got that idea.
Yeah, right.
The idea was from Neil Gaiman's idea. The last Bauhaus director, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, retrospectively expressed the matter with his characteristic precision. Only an idea has the power to spread so widely.
Right.
The design philosophy embodied in this idea brought together its adherents regardless of national frontiers. Something takes shape, Gestalt. The idea of process inherent in the word design, Gestaltung. How an artifact comes into existence and how it is constituted is as old as the medieval concept of the Bauhütten, Church Masons Guild.
I love the distinction, like when you think about artifact versus art, right? Like when you have a piece of art that encompasses all of history, humanity, thought, love, and glory, whereas an artifact is the thing you might hang on your wall or put in your hand, right? The object.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I find like an artifact is reflective of the time and the values, though.
Just physically having it in your hand.
It's the physical thing,
right? And I think we under address artifact, right? We don't have an art auction. We have an auction of artifacts.
Right.
Right? And an art auction would be like leaving pieces of myself everywhere.
You kind of do that too.
Well, some of my artifacts.
Right.
Right.
Those centers for the guilds and the cathedral builders, to which Gropius was primarily alluding in the name Bauhaus, and the words Gestalt and Gestaltung are so heavily laden with meaning that, being untranslatable, they have found their way into the vocabulary of English.
Right.
Yeah. That is why...
That word, Gestalt, it hits me in the heart so hard when I hear it.
Yeah.
Partly just because people know it. Like, if somebody knows that word, I feel a kinship.
Right, yeah. Right. Like, if someone knows the Venus of Willendorf, or if someone knows... Right. Yeah, chiaroscuro. It's like, but this is... And these are these words that are untranslatable. Yes. Like, in English, we know the original words. That is why the youthful genius, L. Lux Feininger, the photographic chronicler of the vibrant life of the Bauhaus, expressed the suspicion in his reflections on the school that a feeling for the close proximity of pure thought and concrete substance is typically German.
Also known for their sense of humor.
After this,
and humility.
After the storm and stress of the Weimar period, the founding years of the new beginning between Jugendstil and Expressionism.
Okay, put a line right there. Like cut that paragraph in half. Like this. Can I?
Sorry, yeah,
like
please. I don't know where.
This is it. We know.
Here?
Yeah. This is the moment where like the crowd takes over, right? So it starts out. There's an idea, and then there's the next shift where you lose control of what you had in mind, and it starts to grow in by virtue of the
people who are taking it on.
The people, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So after the storm and stress of the Weimar period, the founding years of the new beginning between Jugendstil and Expressionism, between craft and technology, the school had finally established itself in Dessau as a design laboratory, and you're going to use the word laboratory in one of our iterations too, by around 1925 and 26. So the new glass and steel teaching building, built to Gropius's plans, now housed the production workshops for what was tested and developed at the Bauhaus, had to be economically profitable, so they had to maintain themselves.
Right.
The future of handicrafts lay...
Can you put a spot there?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's when the virtue of what they were doing shifted to somehow we have to stay alive.
Right.
That's the great compromise.
They had to keep
I think they ran that one well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they came back to the main idea.
And it doesn't matter who you are, there's always a compromise, right?
Yeah.
Like whether you're, going to live off the wealthy or marry somebody wealthy or, get a side hustle job teaching in a university, there's always that compromise.
Or like with us with the auctions, like we wish we didn't have to do with money.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. They're fun when we do them with good deeds.
Right.
Right. If we had our
but we need to...
I was thinking how like free of decorative our outside is on the building. It's just like a tin slab, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So is the other one.
Yep. The white, yeah.
Yeah, just blank.
Flat.
Colors should be blank.
Okay.
Okay.
The future of handicrafts lay in creative design for industrial production. From the initial exploratory stage, there had emerged fixed concepts
Just move it that way a bit. There we go.
such as norm, type, and synthesis, which, in the combination of art and craft elements, pointed the way forward to new forms of industrial design. So they were using norm, type, and
I think it's good to do just like
synthesis.
the inventive
art and
things that were
craft
happening
to industrial
along the way,
design. Yeah, so they're taking all these ideas and putting them into.
Yeah.
A prospectus by Hans Meyer contained the words, "Young people come to the Bauhaus." They came from many countries and took the Bauhaus vision out into the world. The book is conceived in terms of three elements: themes, works, and documentation. The thematic contributions offer insights into the historical, political, and educational background to the Bauhaus down to the present day. They make it easier to understand this germ cell of modernism, the roots of which, however, go back far into the 19th century. The history of the Bauhaus reception is examined from aesthetic and philosophical points of view and in terms of its close connection with its history of the Weimar Republic, along with the recognition of how it was conscripted to serve the social and political aims of the National Socialists and the East German dictatorship.
Right.
The school's specific achievements, from at the very top of the list, the famous preliminary course and its didactic concept proposing
Could you tell the people what didactic means?
teaching form. So it's educational concept, like the idea of teaching.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's, didactic concept. So it wasn't just doing, it was trying to educate the public
that's
as
right,
well.
And
Yeah.
that goes back to the reflectiveness, right?
And that's exactly how we've been trying to work our space too. It's never been just about making art, it's been about educating the public on any number of things too. Okay, sorry. And its didactic concept proposing a close interlocking of craft work and theoretical teaching to the challenges of a curriculum that related study to practice. These achievements not only determined the educational legacy of the Bauhaus to its successor institutions, which recruited their staff in part from Bauhaus masters and pupils, they also continue to exert their influence down to the present day in modern colleagues and academies.
Which is really neat because Alex did it at Rock Mountain College.
Yeah, under Joseph Albers.
And even just meeting with him on the beach, he was still living it, right? 100%.
100%.
100%.
And his writing,
I know. Right?
everything
No, I know.
comes from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. These essays are followed by a group in which investigation of the everyday life of the members of the Bauhaus sheds light onto its subtle internal mechanics. The Bauhaus, as a focal point for the radical modernization of everyday life, became in the 1920s the catalyst of a new self-awareness. Its achievement lay in bringing together a cluster of anti-academic attitudes and establishing them in an unconventional manner in an actual school.
They'll burn you to death for that, eh? They'll tie you to a tree and ignite your body. Fill your pockets with nails and gunpowder.
New styles in fashion and new forms of living together, modern concepts of the body, esoteric theories, and techniques such as Mazdaznan, experiments in free love, the emancipation of women, and the Bauhaus parties as seismographs for the spirit of the age and its delight in experimentation. These were the life-enhancing recipes for the élan of the Bauhaus and for an undiminished vitality which the school itself continues to radiate even more than, well, this is an old book, 100 years later. For the first time, this copious illustrated book group of contributions lends power to the convergence of humanity and the educational institution.
That's good. Keep going.
The Bauhaus personalities provide the introduction to the works section, most notably the directors who are presented in relation to the particular creative periods of the Bauhaus, with their successes and their failures resulting from political turmoil. This is followed by a monographic selection of outstanding masters and young masters, personalities such as George Much, Lothar Scherrer, Heinrich Schieper, Just Schmidt, Mart Stam,
You're doing very well.
Lucia Maholi, Lily Reich are assessed in relation to their products or workshops with basic information on
Can I
how they shaped the character and syllabus of the
Can I
Bauhaus.
present a hypothesis right now?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess straight up that the Bauhaus fails 3 times and is reborn 3 times.
I like that.
I base that off of everything I've ever read about the Black Panthers or any thousands of.
Can you check? Is this?
No, it's good.
Okay.
It just always happens that way. There's an idea. There's the first wave, the
It's
second
shut
wave, and
down.
the third wave. Where did we read that? You remember? Okay, we'll get back to that.
Oh, that was in the jazz book.
Yeah, right. There's 3
Yeah.
waves of everything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Because it's the inception, and then people take it on,
Yeah.
and then it's made like international, and then it
Yeah.
it like keeps breeding.
Right. It's funny how like they always come back to the same ideas, right? Somewhere in here they'll talk about the space between the note, right? It always comes back to the same fundamental. And the other idea is you got to move to live, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally. Okay. This is developed by drawing attention to aspects of the artist's work which go beyond their activities at the Bauhaus and illustrate, among other things, their involvement in the avant-garde movement of the century. This section is also concerned with preparatory teaching at the Bauhaus. Here, the specific differences are analyzed between the educational models of Itten, Moholy-Nagy, and Albers, through to the classes given by Kandinsky and Klee. This is followed by an introduction to the formal spectrum of the workshops, with an account of the various stages of development from craft-based production in Weimar via design work for a modern industrial society in Dessau, down to the curriculum in the late phase of the school with its academic slant.
Where do we get a copy of that?
No, this is all in this book.
The curriculum?
Yeah. Well, it says it.
I know, just keep going.
Yeah, it's going to talk about it at least, and then we can find out.
Imagine how painful the rest of our lives are going to be after this.
Or everyone else's
Okay,
lives.
okay.
Okay. Here too, extended discussions with new specific starting points provide a more complex understanding of the workshops. The section on theory approaches the phenomenon of the Bauhaus and 20th century modernism in the form of a small forum for both retrospective and forward-looking considerations. The final section is broken down into 2 parts, documentation and a merchandising appendix. The second part presents the Bauhaus designs that are most frequently produced today. See, that's like the idea of being able to produce something that can be made like years after your death even. Like you're creating something that has such an idea in it and it's so clean that it can be picked up and recreated is really beautiful too. In order to encourage collectors and connoisseurs, it lists the firms which sell Bauhaus artifacts, furniture, and textiles. This is like a personal thing, but I love that textiles and craft were given the same weight as everything else in this house.
Yeah.
Like they keep talking about the craftsmanship.
I heard just swoon when they said women. Like it shouldn't be, but like what a big moment, right?
Well, and that's what's about like that first line, how it was like the new man is like, but they were like
They used the
really,
wrong word.
they just used the wrong word. Like they were really in the forefront of pushing equality. The popular conception of the Bauhaus style was shaped by a small number of early writings on modern design. The material presented for scrutiny in this book shows, in contrast, an open dynamic corpus of formal and functional rules, which is intended, so to speak, to take the usual approach of looking at a single striking individual object and to extend and multiply it. Elevated by...
Can you read that part again?
Yeah.
Really slowly.
Yeah. The popular conception of the Bauhaus style was shaped by a small number of early writings on modern design. The material presented for scrutiny in this book shows, in contrast, an open, dynamic corpus of formal and functional rules, which is intended, so to speak, to take the usual approach of looking at a single striking individual object and to extend it and multiply it.
To look at an object, to extend it, and to multiply it.
Yeah.
That is the core of all of my teaching. I'm just realizing that right now, right? Through perspective and through print and through repetition and rhythm.
Yeah.
That's intense, right? Because you keep showing the depth on a 2-dimensional plane
Yeah.
or on a 3-dimensional object.
Yeah.
by going through repetition and through time, through
Space and
slices, right?
Yeah.
Through slices of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elevated by those who came under its influence to a class among avant-garde movements, the Bauhaus remains, even beyond the century that is now coming to an end, a touchstone for a second or third era of modernism in design and architecture.
That was just the forward.
That was just the forward.
Right.